Okay, we're ready for our next speaker, who is, he's going to be talking about faulty reasoning. So with faults, we're expecting some nice schist from him. It's about the flat earth argument this time. It's Andrew Bailey. Sorry, Andrew. That was for the geologists.
Well, we'll try it this way. First slide. Before we get into that, I want to quickly describe something that I call the Sherlock Holmes heuristic, which you're probably all familiar with. Holmes has often said to Watson, how often have I said to you that when you've eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. So he's setting up there a means of getting at the truth in a certain situation. Now, many of you out there are probably already screaming inside, well, it's known to be a fallacious way of getting at truth. And you can read about those issues on the Rational Wiki. I want to characterize part of that issue this way. If you don't know about the butler, you can't conclude that the butler did it. So bear that in mind as we move on to the actual argument I want to take apart, which finds its current form in this black swan photo, which are images of these rigs out in sea and claims made about what you can and cannot see. However, this is merely the latest instantiation of an argument that was put forward originally by Samuel Rowbotham in the 19th century with his Bedford Levels experiments. Oops, going backwards now. So what I did was to try and boil this argument down into its bare bones to get at the logic of the argument. And what I ended up with for this is I can see an object d distance away. The only explanation for this observation is that it's flat between me and the object. Therefore, the Earth is flat. So hopefully you can feel that this argument is already rather flawed. We're going to dig into the details of each of these parts. Sorry. So let's take this antecedent to the therefore. The only explanation for the observation is that it is flat between me and the object. How do the flat earthers go about convincing you that that's true? And what they do is they come out fighting. They start to accuse the science community of being wrong about the spherical Earth, and therefore, since you're wrong, I'm right, which is also a flawed argument form. The establishment of being wrong is to take accepted science, the sphere of 6,357 kilometers, take that measurement from that image and analyze it in that context and say, you wouldn't be able to see what I can see if this was true. So you're wrong, therefore I'm right, because I believe it's flat. Hopefully you can see that this is clearly a false dichotomy, and this is where I think the Sherlock Holmes heuristic might be usefully considered as an alternative. And we'll see why that might be useful in a minute. The other thing that often happens here is there's a faulty generalization. Having analyzed this sphere, they will go on to claim that the Earth is not spherical. So they've generalized from one case and said, for all spheres, this is wrong. Now, when the flat earthers put this out into the ether, the flat earth debunking community will come back with arguments of this form. You, flat earth apologist, have made an inaccurate analysis of our case, and therefore your claim is wrong. That inaccurate analysis is usually to do with the fact that the atmosphere is a refractive medium and it will affect the way the photons travel from object to observer. All that really does is to throw a spanner into the works of the logic. I take issue with this because what it doesn't do is tackle the logical fallacies in their actual argument. It leaves them live. And leaving them live like that leaves in place what I'm calling a mug filter. If somebody doesn't quite buy your claim that they've made an inaccurate analysis, they don't quite understand it, it leaves them open to being pulled through this logic to the conclusion that the Earth is flat or that maybe the flat earther has a point. So I think it's important to dismantle the logic of their argument as well. So that's what I want to discuss now. We could challenge the false dichotomy that they actually put forward to us, and that could be a bit confrontational, and I suspect you'd have a hard time with flat earthers trying to draw out from them why it's just these two cases. So by thinking about it as the Sherlock Holmes heuristic, we can go around and try and find these unknown butlers that they were not aware of. For example, a sphere of 20,000 kilometers. If they're to do the same analysis that they did with our original sphere, this sphere is 3 times larger than that one, the horizon is 3 times further away, you're more likely to pass whatever observational test they're doing to actually make their claim about, I can see this or not. But maybe not. Does it matter? Well, no, because there are other unknown butlers. They're 40,000 kilometers, or 50,000 kilometers, or 100,000 kilometers, or, hopefully you see the pattern going on here, there are an infinite number of spheres that they need to eliminate in order to arrive at the conclusion that the Earth is flat. Quick aside here, sometimes the argument is presented in the idea of 8 inches per mile squared drop. You could question them on this formula, but instead ask them about, well, have you analysed 4 inches per mile squared? 2 inches, 1, half. There's a sort of another infinite series of cases that they need to analyse. It's the sort of inverse of the sphere argument. What about the rest of their argument? Therefore, the Earth is flat. Well, this is clearly a faulty generalisation. They make one single observation of the surface of the Earth, make that analysis, and then say, well, therefore, it's all flat. How might we tackle that? We could suggest to them that their method here wouldn't be able to distinguish between the Earth being flat and the Earth being, say, dodecahedron. If the Earth was a dodecahedron, and you carried out that measurement, that observation here, you'd end up incorrectly concluding that the Earth was flat. So clearly you've got to do many more observations of the actual surface of the Earth so that you can capture cases like this if the Earth happened to be a dodecahedron. So now we have to tell our flat earther to go back and analyse all that infinite set of spheres with all these new observations as well. But also when they've finished with that infinite set of spheres, they've got to deal with the infinite set of dodecahedrons as well. And when they finish with them, there's the infinite set of tetrahedrons and quadrahedrons and heptahedrons. That's probably an infinite set of hedrons. I'm not quite clear on that. Is that it? Are there any more unknown butlers? Well, yeah. Who said the Earth has to be a regular shape?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrew. We've got a couple of questions. One from Sherlock Holmes, and Bremner is joining him on a very similar question, actually, wondering, is it really worth debating with these people at all when they're just so wrong?
So the person you're debating with may not be doing so in good faith. Some of them operate off a presupposition, one of which I characterise as Bibleist. They believe the Bible is true. They infer from the Bible that the Earth is flat from there, and therefore they're going to try and convince you the Earth is flat, try and run that argument in reverse. The others are what I call Barnumist. They believe in the presupposition that there's a sucker born every minute, and they are getting some kind of satisfaction, monetary or emotional satisfaction from working this argument. You want to deprive them of people. And so when you're talking directly to a flat earther, maybe you won't convince them, but you want to try and stop people falling through that argument to a state where they might believe them. And that's why it's important to take apart the logic that they're using there and not just say, oh, your analysis is wrong, you've forgotten about diffraction or refraction.
We've got a follow-up to that, really, about the logic, because Igor asks, do you agree with the notion that you can't reason people out of something that they didn't reason themselves into?
Oh, I think that's the presupposition statement I made there. I say, I'm not sure that those can be our targets because they've got specific reasons that, as you say, you can't reason them out of. But it's not those people we should be targeting. It's the people who may fall for the argument. It's inoculation against them falling through by getting them to think correctly about arguments.
And we have a great question from Aaron, which I think probably a lot of people wanted to ask, which is, do you have a favourite non-sphere Earth shape that you wish was real?
I mean, I clearly favoured the dodecahedron there, but not regular at all would be much more interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it certainly would. There's a question from Anonymous who asks, did I miss why the black swan photo doesn't prove the Earth is flat? It's a serious question. What was it about it?
The flat earthers are comparing what you might see by looking at those rigs close up and what you can see when they're at a distance away, and then saying the only reason is because it's flat between me and the object. And if it was curved, the photons that are bouncing off those rigs are crashing into the curve of the Earth and not reaching the observer. And their claim is that's why the Earth is not a sphere.
Right.
But the counter-argument to that is, well, it's not just about the sphericity of the planet, it's the fact is the atmosphere is a refractive medium.
So the atmosphere, is that it? Oh, so Sherlock Holmes has come back and asks, it's Steve, not Sherlock. No, really, I'm so sorry, Steve. I don't think that was a question, that was a demand for an apology. Right.
Damn it, I thought Holmes was here.
Right, okay, so Andrew, thank you very much indeed.